Welcome to the deep dive. Today we've got, well, quite an unusual collection of sources lined up.
Yeah, it's quite a mix, isn't it? We're pulling from Roman Stoics like Seneca, civil rights icons like Sojourner Truth.
All the way to, modern thinkers like Stephen Covey on productivity and researchers like Brene Brown on vulnerability.
It seems eclectic, but they all converge, really, on one central theme: character. What it means to build and live a life of character.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to get practical, to move beyond just talking about being a good person in the abstract.
We want to explore let's say, the infrastructure of a life that's defined by active character. We're looking for that blueprint for an enduring legacy.
So we'll be digging into how things like courage, self-mastery, and principled action really shape a life well lived.
And importantly, how to avoid those regrets, those failures of kindness or inaction that, well, frankly, so many of these sources warn us about, the kind that can stick with you for life.
Okay, that's a big mission. So where do we start? I think we have to begin at the foundation, right? Defining value.
Absolutely. Before you can build anything, you need to know what materials you value, what you're actually building for.
And often, this conversation immediately pivots to wealth, doesn't it? And that very famous, often misunderstood biblical warning.
Ah, yes. The love of money is the root of all evil.
Right. And it's been used for centuries, sometimes to almost demonize striving for any kind of success or, abundance.
But one of our key sources today, Russell Conwell, famous for his Acres of Diamonds speech, delivered thousands of times. He really spent a lot of energy clarifying this.
He had a specific take on it.
A very specific, almost theological clarification. He argued that people miss the point when they just quote that verse in isolation.
Okay, so what was his clarification? How does it change things?
Conwell insisted the problem isn't money itself. It's making an idol of money. His image was the miser who hugs the dollar until the eagle squeals.
Ah, so it's the worship of the currency, the hoarding, seeing money as the end goal?
Precisely. Instead of seeing it as a tool, as a resource for useful and noble purposes. That's the crucial distinction.
So the moral failing isn't in honestly earning money.
Not at all.
It's in pursuing it without a purpose beyond just having more. It's the hoarding.
Exactly. Conwell went even further. He said that when wealth is pursued honestly and then used purposefully for good in the world, attaining it is actually a Christian and godly duty.
Wow, that's a strong statement, a duty.
Yes. He suggested that failing to acquire the means to help others, when you have the capability and opportunity, that could be the real moral failing. It flips the script entirely.
So wealth becomes a resource for contribution.
A necessary resource for maximizing your positive impact. And he really lived this philosophy. The founding of Temple University is the prime example.
Right, tell us that story. It's a great illustration of immediate, purposeful action.
It really is. Conwell tells how, back in 1884, a young man came to him. He wanted an education, desperately wanted it, but had absolutely no money.
And Conwell didn't just offer sympathy.
No platitudes, no committees. He responded immediately. He said, basically, come to my library tonight, I'll teach you. And that young man brought 6 others with him.
7 students in his library. That was the start.
That was the earnest beginning, as Conwell called it. The purpose was clear and immediate. Meet this need for knowledge.
And look what grew from that, from just 7 students.
It eventually became Temple University, enrolling almost 90,000 students just within Conwell's lifetime. That's the power, the legacy of seeing resources as a vehicle, not the destination.
It paints a stark contrast, doesn't it? One path serves the dollar, the other uses the dollar to serve people.
Exactly. And that distinction really launches us perfectly into our first main area, the inner work, the internal dimension of character.
Okay, so moving from purposeful resources to, let's say, the purposeful self, the inner citadel, cultivating self-mastery and courage. And the absolute bedrock seems to be proactivity.
Proactivity is absolutely central. It's the engine, really, because it defines where you believe control lies. Is it internal or external?
We often think we need to sort of invent our life's mission, right? Like pull it out of thin air.
Yeah, and that can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
But Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, he offered a really important correction based on his experiences.
Frankl said we don't invent our mission, we detect it.
Exactly. We detect it because it's already out there, in the world. It's a unique task, a unique demand that life places specifically on you. It's unrepeatable.
So it shifts the focus, not what do I want, but but maybe what is needed from me.
Precisely. What is the world asking of me, and what's my unique response? That focus on responsibility, that's the heart of proactivity.
And Stephen Covey gave us a very practical framework for this, didn't he? That idea of the space between stimulus and response.
Yes, the power to choose our response.
Yeah.
And that choice, that power, resides firmly within what he called the circle of influence.
Explain that circle of influence again.
Okay, so your circle of influence contains everything you can actually do something about. Your choices, your attitude, your work ethic, your responses to events.
And outside that.
Outside that is a much larger circle of concern. This has things like, global politics, the weather, other people's behavior, past mistakes, things you might worry about but can't directly control.
And reactive people focus their energy where?
On the circle of concern. They spend their time and energy worrying, complaining, blaming things outside their control, and that drains their energy and makes them feel powerless.
Which leads to that reactive language.
Yeah.
Can you give some examples? Because I think we all slip into it sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Reactive language gives away your power. It's rooted in blaming external factors. So you hear things like, that's just the way I am. That's blaming genetics.
Or he makes me so mad.
Right, blaming someone else for your emotions. Environmental determinism. Or simply, I can't do that, implying some external force is stopping you completely.
Covey's point is that using this language essentially means you're admitting you're being, what was the word,
Lived.
Yeah.
Lived by circumstances rather than living your own life. It implies a total lack of agency.
Whereas proactive language flips that script immediately.
Completely. It reclaims that agency. So instead of, he makes me mad, a proactive person might think or say, I'm in control of my feelings. I can choose a different response here.
And instead of I can't, it becomes,
Okay, what are my options? Or how can I approach this differently? Or
Yeah.
I will choose an appropriate response. It's a fundamental shift in mindset and language.
And this shift is the first step towards what Covey called the private victory, the victory over oneself.
Exactly. Mastering yourself first. And that private victory, that self-mastery, it's completely tied to how we handle the tough stuff. Failure, criticism, disappointment.
Which brings us straight to courage, and specifically Brené Brown's work on shame resilience.
Thank you.
Proactivity needs courage as its partner, doesn't it?
Absolutely. They go hand in hand. Brown's research here is so insightful. She defines shame as that really intense, painful feeling that we're flawed, fundamentally flawed, and therefore unworthy of love or belonging.
And the crucial thing she found is how shame gets its power.
It gets its power from being unspeakable, from secrecy. It thrives in the dark, in silence. It loves perfectionists, she says, because they work so hard to keep everything looking perfect, to keep the perceived flaws hidden.
So if silence fuels shame,
Then the antidote has to be voice, story, bringing it into the light, naming it. That cuts its power off.
how does this apply when we face, say, a setback, a failure?
Well, when we fail, maybe a project tanks, a relationship ends, we lose a job. Shame is right there waiting. It whispers or shouts, see, I knew it. You're not good enough. This proves you're unworthy.
And courage is the ability to talk back to that voice.
Yes. It's the ability to separate the event of failure or defeat from your assessment of your own worth. You can acknowledge the pain, the disappointment. Wow, this hurts. I'm really disappointed this didn't work out.
But you don't let it define your worth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You respond to shame by affirming your values. You say, okay, this failed, but my value is courage, and I showed up. I was brave. Or my value is integrity, and I'm going to own my part in this. Crucially, you maintain, my worthiness is not up for negotiation.
That internal check-in, keeping worthiness off the table, must be vital, especially thinking about the messages we absorb growing up. Brown talks about those destructive covert messages, right?
Oh, it's devastating. She gives examples like how girls are often implicitly taught their worth depends on being thin, nice, and modest. It sets up this idea that worth is conditional on pleasing others or conforming.
And for boys,
Often the message is about being tough, emotionally stoic, achieving status, maybe being aggressive. Again, it's a performance. And when you inevitably fail that performance, you show vulnerability. You're not nice enough. Shame rushes in because your worth wasn't grounded intrinsically in the first place.
so the takeaway for building a strong character, a lasting legacy, is focus on changing behaviors that need changing, absolutely. But never let your fundamental worthiness be part of the discussion.
Never. And that internal courage, that self-worth, it also needs to extend to how we face loss. Because loss, is inevitable.
This is where Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, comes in. How does his wisdom help build that inner citadel against loss?
Seneca offers a really powerful psychological tool, a reframing technique. He says the resource we have against even the most frightful losses, losing someone we love, losing our health, our fortune, is memory.
His famous line, "To have may be taken from us, to have had never."
Exactly. It's an active choice. You shift your focus from the painful gap in the present, the absence, back to the richness of what you had, the presence in the past. The value you derived isn't erased just because the thing or person is gone.
So focusing only on the loss actually doubles the pain.
Right. But focusing on the value retained in memory, that provides resilience. And Seneca pushes it further, challenging our whole reaction to loss. He talks about the unthankful heart.
What does he mean by that?
He defines someone as unthankful if, after losing something precious, they feel no sense of obligation or gratitude for having had it in the first place.
So, if you let the pain of the loss make you regret the joy you once had.
You're essentially being ungrateful for the gift you received.
Yeah.
For letting the present pain poison the past joy. And you lose the benefit, the enjoyment, twice over.
Wow. So the choice is honor the memory, hold on to the value gained, or let regret over the loss erase the joy of the having.
That's the internal choice. That's the final defense, perhaps, of the inner citadel. Making that conscious choice to value what was had, even in the face of loss.
Okay, so we've fortified the inner citadel. Now let's move outward into the world of action. And we can circle back to Conwell's amazing metaphor, acres of diamonds. This section is all about spotting opportunity, applying focus, and actually doing something.
Yes, finding greatness right where you are. The Acres of Diamonds story is so powerful. It's about Ali Hafed, this wealthy Persian farmer.
He had it all, basically. A magnificent farm, family.
Everything. But then he hears these tales about diamonds, about the incredible wealth they bring, and he gets consumed by this idea.
So he sells his farm.
Sells his beautiful farm, leaves his family, and spends the rest of his life wandering the world, searching fruitlessly for diamond mines. He dies penniless and alone.
And the punchline.
Years later, the man who bought Ali Hafed's old farm is watering his camels in the stream running through the garden. He notices a peculiar, glittering rock in the sand.
Don't tell me.
That rock turns out to be a massive diamond. And that garden, Ali Hafed's old garden, becomes the site of the Golconda diamond mine, one of the richest ever discovered. The diamonds were literally under his feet the whole time.
He was looking for wealth out there and missed the acres of diamonds right at home. It's such a classic mistake.
It really is. And Conwell wasn't just telling a story. He backed it up with observation. He noted that most of the genuinely wealthy people he knew hadn't struck it rich by moving to the big city.
Where did they make their money?
Often in small towns. Towns with populations under 3,500, he said. His point was emphatic. It's less about where you are and much more about who you are.
The opportunities aren't just in certain places. They're revealed by your character, your diligence, your ability to see.
Exactly. By your observation skills, which requires this intense focus on your immediate surroundings, on local needs and demands.
And that brings us to that fantastic anecdote about John Jacob Astor. He wasn't literally mining diamonds, but he was definitely mining opportunities through observation.
Oh, absolutely. It's a masterclass in who you are, creating opportunity. So Astor forecloses on a failing hat shop, a millinery store. Everyone expects him to just sell off the stock.
But he doesn't.
No. He keeps the same capital, the same partners. He changes the approach. He wants to figure out why it failed. Why weren't the hats selling?
So how does he do his market research? No fancy consultants back then, I assume.
He sits on a park bench across the street. But it wasn't just casual people watching. It was meticulous field research. He observed the women walking by, studying their bonnets intensely, the shapes, the trims, the feathers. He was identifying trends, spotting unmet desires.
Things the store staff inside the shop were completely missing.
Totally missing. He was gathering real-time data on consumer preference. They need to go back to the store staff.
And tell them what to stock.
Even more specific, he'd say, put only this kind of bonnet in the window, because I just saw 3 ladies walk by who clearly liked that style. He wasn't just guessing or flooding the window. He was matching specific, observed demand.
That's incredible. His character, that diligent observation, turned a failing business around by finding the diamonds right there.
Exactly. And that level of focus, that applied mental energy, connects directly to what Abraham Lincoln identified as a key principle for achieving anything significant.
Lincoln's rule for greatness.
What was it? It was remarkably simple, but incredibly demanding. Lincoln said that whatever task he had before him, he put his whole mind into it. He held his entire focus there, excluding everything else, until the task was completely finished.
That single-minded concentration, he argued, that makes people great almost anywhere.
Yes. You can't build a legacy if your energy is scattered in 100 directions. You have to concentrate your force.
And isn't that exactly what we saw with Conwell and Temple University? It wasn't just a nice idea. It started small, that earnest beginning.
With 7 students.
But the effort was concentrated, focused, and sustained over time.
That's the critical link.
Mhm.
The small start was possible because the purpose was clear. The massive result happened because the execution was earnest, the focus remained, and the commitment was there to see it through year after year. The legacy lies in that sustained, focused application of effort.
But to maintain that kind of focus, especially over the long haul, you need fuel, right? You need to keep learning, keep growing. Earl Nightingale talked about this.
He did. He stressed the need for continuous learning. He called the mind of a creative, productive person an inexhaustible storehouse.
Yeah.
You have to keep stocking it.
Meaning you constantly need new information, new ideas, new wisdom.
Yes, because that's what gives meaning and purpose to your daily work. If you stop learning, your work becomes stale, routine, reactive. But if you're constantly augmenting that inner storehouse, then today's work is informed and energized by yesterday's learning. It creates momentum.
And that constant intake naturally fuels the output side too, generating ideas to solve problems, to innovate.
Which requires embracing quantity, at least initially. You need lots of ideas to find the good ones. Think of Stendhal, the novelist.
What did he say?
He quipped something like, "I require 3 or 4 cubic feet of new ideas a day, just like a steamboat requires coal." You need that raw material.
It reminds me of Charles Kettering working on the diesel engine. That took years, didn't it?
6 years. 6 years of intense work, trying countless approaches, failing over and over again.
But he kept at it. He maintained that Lincoln-esque focus.
He did. And finally, as Kettering put it, the engine itself finally told us exactly what it wanted. The solution emerged, but only after that relentless perseverance, fueled by generating and testing numerous possibilities.
So the problem often reveals its own solution, but only if you stick with it long enough and try enough things.
That's the essence of it. Hold your mind there until it's all done. This idea of modeling excellence, like Tony Robbins talks about observing what works, what focused behaviors lead to success, and replicating them, that's how active character translates into tangible results in the world.
Okay, so we've covered the inner citadel, the self-mastery and courage, and the action plan, finding opportunity, and applying focus. Now we arrive at the highest level, perhaps, active virtue. How does that inner strength translate into how we interact with others and the world?
This is where it gets really interesting. The first major shift here, according to Covey, is moving beyond mere independence.
Independence is good, right? Being self-reliant.
It's essential. It's the foundation. You have to be independent first. But it's not the ultimate goal. The higher, more mature stage is interdependence.
Which means?
Realizing that, okay, I'm capable on my own, but you and I working together can achieve far, far more than either of us could alone. It's about collaboration, synergy.
And Covey stresses that interdependence is a choice only independent people can make.
Exactly. Because if you're dependent, you need others to take care of you. You can't truly choose to collaborate from a position of strength. Interdependence requires that foundation of self-reliance first.
And when independent people choose to collaborate, the key ingredient for making it work is trust. Which brings us to Covey's metaphor of the emotional bank account.
Right. Think of it like a financial bank account, but for relationships. You make deposits through acts of kindness, honesty, keeping promises, showing loyalty, understanding the other person.
And withdrawals.
Withdrawals are things like breaking promises, being disrespectful, interrupting, blaming, being arrogant, ignoring the other person. You need a healthy balance, a surplus, for the relationship to thrive.
And what did Covey say was one of the biggest, yet often hardest, deposits to make?
The sincere apology. Saying I was wrong, or that was unkind of me, or I apologize. It's huge because it requires humility. It requires putting the relationship and your own integrity above your ego or your immediate defensiveness.
If you can't apologize sincerely, you're basically choosing your pride over the health of the relationship.
You're operating reactively, sacrificing long-term trust for short-term face-saving. A big withdrawal.
This whole perspective really changes how you look at problems or conflicts in relationships, doesn't it?
Completely. Covey calls problems in interdependent situations P problems, production problems, the immediate issue you need to solve. But he says we should always view them as PC opportunities,
PC meaning.
production capability, the opportunity to build the relationship itself. When you tackle a problem together, yes, you solve the P, but you're also practicing communication, building trust, deepening understanding, you're increasing the PC, the capability of the relationship to handle future challenges.
So the problem becomes a chance to strengthen the connection. That's active virtue in practice within a relationship.
Precisely. But active virtue extends beyond personal relationships. It demands the courage to act against injustice in the wider world, even when it's difficult or unpopular.
This leads us to figures like Theodore Roosevelt and his stance on economic justice.
Roosevelt was incredibly forceful on this. He wasn't just suggesting fairness, he was demanding a living wage for every worker. And listen to how strongly he put it. He called the employer who doesn't provide a living wage
What did he call him?
an enemy of morality, of religion, and of the state.
Wow. That frames it not just as bad business, but as a moral and civic failure, a direct attack on the country's foundations.
It defines justice not as a passive ideal, but as an active, non-negotiable requirement. Wealth must serve human dignity, not the other way around.
We see a similar urgency in the fight against hatred, as articulated by Elie Wiesel.
Wiesel, drawing from the abyss of the Holocaust, made the crucial observation that hatred is rarely contained. Those who hate one group, he noted, almost inevitably hate other people as well.
So hatred against Jews is linked to hatred against Black people, Muslims, other minorities. It's a pattern.
It's a mindset, a disease. And his point was that we have a moral duty to confront it wherever it appears, early and universally. Silence is complicity.
And he didn't just call for words. He suggested concrete actions, like tying economic aid to government efforts against anti-Semitism.
Yes, showing that our commitment to fighting hatred must have real-world consequences. The moral failure isn't just the act of hating, but also the passive tolerance that allows it to fester.
That kind of active, courageous stance against injustice is embodied so powerfully by figures from the civil rights and suffrage movements. Think of Sojourner Truth.
An incredible example.
Yeah.
Standing before a hostile, furious mob, described as remaining calm and dignified. She represented, as the source notes, the two most hated elements of humanity at that time, being Black and being a woman.
Yet her dignity became her shield and her weapon.
And her action wasn't just symbolic. She focused on tangible goals, like getting young Black people access to jobs and trades they were systematically excluded from. Her legacy is that active dignity demanding change.
And then there's Elizabeth Cady Stanton using intellectual tools strategically for active virtue.
Brilliantly strategic. She took the foundational document of American liberty, the Declaration of Independence, and she mirrored its structure to create the Declaration of Sentiments.
Listing the grievances of women demanding equality.
It was a masterstroke. It framed women's rights not as a special interest, but as a fundamental issue of justice, using the very language the nation was built on. It launched the suffrage movement.
And her famous quote really captures that proactive spirit, doesn't it?
We shall never have equal rights until we take them, nor equal respect until we command it. It perfectly sums it up. You don't wait for justice, you actively claim it.
Okay, but this kind of strong moral action, this righteous anger, it needs careful definition, right? To distinguish it from just, envy or resentment. Aristotle helps here.
Yes, Aristotle provides crucial nuance with his definition of righteous indignation.
How did he define it?
He said righteous indignation is the feeling of being pained specifically at undeserved prosperity.
Undeserved prosperity. So it's not simply being upset that someone else has more than you.
No, that would be envy. Righteous indignation is feeling pain because injustice has occurred. Someone has gained or benefited in a way that is contrary to fairness, contrary to what they deserve.
And Aristotle saw feeling this as a mark of good character. Why?
Because it shows your moral compass is working. If you value justice, then witnessing injustice should cause you pain. The person who sees wrongdoing rewarded, or the wicked prosper, and feels nothing, that's the person whose character, Aristotle might say, needs work. Active virtue requires this sensitivity.
Taking this idea of moral consequence to its philosophical extreme, we have to touch on Plato's Gorgias dialogue and Socrates' really radical argument about punishment.
Oh, it's truly mind-bending stuff. Socrates argues something that goes against all our usual intuitions. He claims that the person who is justly punished actually has something good, something fine done to them.
We normally see punishment as purely negative suffering deterrence. How does Socrates justify it as a benefit?
His logic is that wrongdoing, injustice, creates kind of sickness or corruption in the soul. Just like a physical illness needs medicine, this spiritual illness needs a cure. And the cure, according to Socrates, is justice, which includes appropriate punishment.
So punishment is like medicine for the soul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It purifies the soul, freeing it from the evil of injustice. Therefore, the person who undergoes just punishment is actually being improved, healed. The real tragedy, for Socrates, is the wrongdoer who escapes punishment because their soul remains diseased.
That completely reframes the purpose of leadership or even just rhetoric and persuasion.
It does. Socrates argues the goal of a truly good orator, a good leader, isn't just to win arguments or gain popularity. It's to have justice and moderation always in view.
Their aim should be
To bring justice and moderation and every other virtue to birth in the souls of his fellow citizens and on removing their opposites. True leadership becomes a form of moral cultivation for the whole community. That's the pinnacle of active virtue. #outro.
wow. What an incredible journey through philosophy, psychology, history, and, well, practical advice. If we try to synthesize this vast legacy, what's the core takeaway?
I think it comes down to this. A truly meaningful, well-lived life isn't defined by your circumstances, by what happens to you, or even by what you accumulate externally. It's defined by your internal choices.
The choice to be proactive, not reactive.
The choice to cultivate courage and resilience in the face of shame and loss.
The choice to act with focus and integrity, seeing opportunity where others see none.
And ultimately, the choice to commit to justice and interdependence, using your strength not just for yourself, but to build trust and fight inequity.
It all comes back to integrity, doesn't it? That alignment between your inner values and your outer actions, making sure, as one source put it, that your honor is greater than your moods.
Beautifully put, you are the architect, but you have to consciously design and build that inner structure first, focusing on growth and contribution.
Okay, so for our final provocative thought today, let's pull everything together. Proactivity, courage, action, virtue, and look at it through the lens of two basic strategies for improving life quality, drawn from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow.
Right. He outlines two fundamental approaches people take. Strategy number one is external.
Trying to make the outside world match your goals.
Exactly. If you want security, you focus on changing your environment. Buy a better lock, move to a gated community, maybe get a weapon. You try to control and manipulate external conditions to feel safe or happy.
And strategy number two?
Strategy number two is internal. It's about changing how you experience the external conditions, making your inner state fit your goals better, regardless of the outside world.
So for security, this would mean
Recognizing that risk is inherent in life, accepting a degree of unpredictability, and learning to find enjoyment and meaning despite the world not being perfectly safe or predictable. You adapt your inner experience.
So the final question for all of us listening is, which of these paths truly reflects a legacy of character, as we've discussed it today?
The first path, trying to constantly control the external, well, it creates endless dependencies, doesn't it? Dependency on money, on status, on circumstances being just right. If your well-being relies on perfect external conditions, you're fundamentally reactive.
Whereas the second path, focusing on your internal response, your experience, your integrity, regardless of the chaos outside.
That is entirely within your circle of influence. That's where proactivity, courage, and true self-mastery reside. That's the path of enduring character.
The legacy is built by the person who chooses that second path, who refuses to let external validation or circumstance dictate their inner state or their commitment to virtue. So perhaps the question to leave everyone with is, what part of your life are you currently trying to fix externally that you could instead choose to embrace and transform internally?
That choice right there might be the ultimate measure of a life well lived.